Okay.
All right, we are going to kick off our first training with Jason. And Jason, I appreciate you doing this and sacrificing your time to share your wealth of knowledge with us on this. I've told my agents that I thought that the more they knew, the less deals they'll have fall apart and the more confident that they will feel in talking to clients just as they're showing houses. So that's kind of the background motive of why I'm bugging you to do this. But
knowledge is power, right?
Right, absolutely. So I just want to make these quick because if we go into an hour conversation, they're going to remember about this much anyway, an inch or two in their brain.
Right.
So let's this week you told me you wanted to talk about sewer lines, sewers in general. So kick us off.
So the first one I want to talk about is a few different types. Orangeburg, which is one of the most notorious ones for failures. It's a wood fibrous material that is glued together mostly. The biggest problem with it is obviously collapsing. They just completely go out and plug your line up. Has to be replaced. There's plastic, which there's fewer problems with those these days. That's why they use them in the homes these days. The next one is like a cast iron or iron, which can rust or corrode. And then you have a clay tile, which was a good sewer line, but it does have a problem with root penetration. The last few sewer scopes we've had, I found a little interesting that very few people hit on the length of a sewer line. So 3 of them that I've done recently were well over 160 foot. The camera doesn't go much more than that. That's usually the average length of a line that can go out. Never reached a city sewer. And I think it's important to know that because it can possibly be a more of expense to if you ever need to repair or replace. And 2, there's supposed to be a clean out or access for a clean out about every 150 foot or so. You very seldom see that problem. See that is in a correct state for any future repairs.
Closest to our own.
So I was like, this isn't.
Ashley, there we go. Question that I have. So if it doesn't go all the way out to the sewer line, or to the city, is there a way to start it at the city and run it back in the opposite way to look and see the whole line?
No.
Okay.
Nope, there is not.
Any of you guys that are tuned in, do you know what like clay sewer lines look like, or Orangeburg, or any of that? Have you heard those terms before? What age range on a house do you let's just start with Orangeburg since that's the one you started with. What age bracket of a house would you say might have Orangeburg?
Prior to the early 1970s. They quit using it in the early 70s.
I didn't even know it was going on that long. Okay. And then as far as clay tiles, like what age bracket would you say those are?
I want to say they're around in the 70s too, mid to late 70s, I believe.
Okay. And then that's when they started using PVC.
Plastic. Yes.
Okay. Those are the 3 that I guess I see the most. How often do you see like the iron?
You still see iron pretty regular, especially in crawl spaces. What they'll do is cut it underneath the house, put on a piece of plastic and run it out through the foundation and replace the rest of the line. So you'll still have sections of iron left in the house.
Okay, but not in the ground.
Not usually. Not unless somebody's done a repair themselves, cut it somewhere, attached a piece of plastic to it, and went on.
Okay. So on clay tiles, what's the common issue with them? Like, why are they not effective?
Root penetration. So clay tiles is, say, 3-foot sections or so, roughly, of piping that they've just jointed together. So at each joint, it's not sealed 100% like they do the plastic. So you have roots growing in there, and it literally can turn into a ball of roots, and it just plugs the line up, stops performing.
Somebody has described those to me in the past as like especially for women that understand this, like those terracotta pots that you plant stuff in and basically just sliding one inside to the other. So that's how they're assembled. And so as the ground dries out or as the ground gets wet, you know, things shift around, and that's a lot of times, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong. That's just what I've heard, is that's where the roots start infiltrating.
Yeah. Okay. And most people don't know this. You probably won't start having root problems until the fall or winter months. That's when the tree stops growing up and starts growing down. That's when the roots will start growing, is in the fall and winter. So like my house personally, just about every year in January, I had to call somebody out to get it cleaned out. Of course, I have a tree next to my sewer line, so that doesn't help my situation any. But yeah, usually in the winter when it's cold out, you know, -5 degrees like we're getting ready to have, is when the sewer line's probably going to be needed cleaned out.
What does it typically cost to have a sewer line scoped? I mean, is that something that you have access to do, or do you hire that out?
I hire it out. My cost is $195, and there's no limit on the length as long as he can get through. And obviously, like I pointed out, his camera will only go so many feet, and that's it. Can't go no more. So that last one we did, he got to about the 170-foot mark roughly, and we never reached the city sewer. And we don't know if there's another 300 foot or just another 50 foot. What we kind of gathered in the little area we was in, which was out west of Hutch, was that it was a fairly new area that they had built like a tank, that the city built a tank out somewhere and attached all those houses lines to that it was going into. So he could have had 300 foot of line. We just don't know. Of course, it was plastic. Our suggestion was to put in more clean out accesses about every 150 foot, so you can keep an eye on that when needed.
I'm going to show some pictures. Hopefully I can screen share and share this with you guys that are watching us now. I'm almost there. And then see if you guys have any questions about any of this stuff. So let me go to my Google. So when we're talking a sewer clean out, these are what you will notice outside. You can see these inside too, but these right here, if everybody can see my screen, you've got that little white PVC that usually pops up there, and it almost looks like a little Lego top on the top of it. And then this is kind of what it's going to look like under the ground that's going to be buried, but that's where they can stick their cameras in and take it out further. So what Jason was saying is, if you had them at, you know, at least every 150 feet, then typical sewer and can continue to look down the line.
Yes. And if you know some of those images, they have like two sticking up. That's so you can go down properly with the camera or a clean out tool and run that direction. They make some of those, they make a bi-direction. A lot of those that go down the ground are directional. So they're designed to go down and go down one way.
Okay.
Yes. So like that one, they've set it up to go either way in that line. So they can go back up underneath the house, or they can go out to wherever the city sewer line's going.
So like if they had a 170-foot line, they could really put this kind of in the middle.
Correct.
And put it either way. Okay. Yes. That makes sense. I always look at these, like if I've looked at their property disclosure and they haven't put that they've replaced the line, and I see like this outside of a house in College Hill, I always think it's safe to assume that at some point they've had some kind of sewer line issue.
Correct.
In order to clean it out. So I kind of point those things out.
Well, and if you notice in this one right here particular, it looks like they've replaced just the section right here and created these clean outs. So it still looks like they have some iron there, it looks like maybe.
Yep.
So the old iron is attached to newer plastic.
Okay, so let me show a couple of other photos here. So I've unfortunately had my
This is what a clay tile connection would look like.
Okay. Those up too. So this is Orangeburg that Jason was talking about.
Yep.
Exact
So
same.
it was used a lot because, for one, it was a lot more economical. It was easier to handle, work with, lighter weight. A lot of contractors went with it because you could cut that with a regular skill saw.
Okay, I'm trying to get past this.
Okay.
So we can actually see this. I was trying to see if it gave us kind of an age group. It was used from the 1860s to 1970s.
I think when I researched it was like 1972-ish when they quit using it.
Okay.
So I said early 70s. Yeah, it's wood fibrous materials basically glued together.
It's almost like a siding.
Yes.
Okay.
And it was, like I said, notorious for collapsing. It's funny because we're talking about going back to clay tile. We had one a couple weeks ago where there was literally a section of it missing, like a 3-foot section. The top half had collapsed, and then it washed on down to the city line. It was still flowing, but the potential for the ground to collapse in on it was a lot greater and completely plugging up the sewer line, potentially. Yeah, there's clay tile.
So it could look like this.
Correct.
And we don't know what that substance is inside of it. It's probably a good combination of
other materials. Yep.
Yeah, other. I think that for our agents that are watching, I think that it's so important that you're recommending it to your clients. I mean, obviously we can't make them get this, but just so you guys are aware, these are not covered by their home
one you're
warranty.
On there, full of roots.
Yeah.
That's what it does.
So that's why your toilet paper can't get down it.
Yep.
But this is not something that's covered by home warranty, and this is not something that's covered by their home insurance. So this is only covered by their pocketbook.
Correct.
I do think, Jason, you might know this better than me. I do think that the sewer company has like insurance you can buy for a replacement. I'm not 100% sure. Somebody was telling me that.
I know some insurance companies offer it as an add-on to their insurance policy. I have one.
Okay.
The $10,000 coverage. That's what I have. Now,
so
I don't know if insurance companies offer it or not.
What would you say a common, like a WAG of a replacement cost would be for a sewer line? And I know it's going to be a big.
Well, obviously there's a lot of variables there, length and all that, but average line's probably $5,000 to $10,000.
Yeah. And I know the deeper they are also can be more expensive.
Yeah.
I know when we were selling our last house, we had a, let me get this off of the screen now. We had our huge patio over the top of it. And so the only thing that we could really do was line it.
Right.
Instead of replacing all of it.
And another little tidbit information is a lot of homes have cleanouts, but they're inside the home. I always tell people it's best to have one outside the home. If you ever do have a backup and they need to get in there, when they take that lid off, guess where all that backup water, sewage is coming into? That's why I tell people when you can, I would get one put on the outside of the home. So if you ever need service, right there, those are inside the home. So when he pulls that off and it's plugged up, guess where all that's coming to? It's in the home.
Yeah.
It's really better to have one on the outside of the home.
Some of the older ones are a little bit different and they're not white like the ones that we were looking at on the outside. I've seen black, but that's the same
point. And I've seen it, no caps on those cleanouts. I know some stories where squirrels would get down in there. Of course, they drown and die, but then your sewer line's plugged up. So, everything you think will never happen, it will happen. Got to have a cap on there.
Right. Okay, let me get this off of there. Does anybody have any questions for Jason on sewer lines? I know it's a very exciting topic.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so do you check the sewer lines at every inspection?
They have to get a sewer scope. They have to select that, and then I call out my guy, and he comes out with his camera and checks it.
So it's not just automatically
You
included.
can't physically see it. Obviously, it's underground, so nobody can see it. That's why it's important to have it done. He can see the inside of the pipe and tell you the condition in it. If there's any dips, if there's any roots that have intruded into it, how long it is. He'll recommend even if there's no clean out access and outside, he's able to recommend that to be done in his own reports. And my guy uses YouTube, so you get an actual video of the sewer scope going down the sewer line.
Okay.
Most of them do. I mean, he's the only one that I know of that's using YouTube, which is genius. And then it's always documented and you don't have to keep track of it. So, I mean, that's even nice if somebody wants to sell it a little bit later.
Yes.
And they have another sewer scope and they're like, oh, here's a dip in it. Well, it's the same dip we had 5 years ago and we haven't had any problems with it. And you can kind of just keep track of what's happening within your system.
He's even caught a couple of times for me that I probably would have missed personally, is the type of connections were made wrong on the pipes. It was very, the chances for it to fail was increased because of the way it wasn't connected properly.
Interesting.
You can spot that through that camera as well.
And you think like once a year you should have this done on your own home, or how often?
Really, it's one of those things you monitor. If you have a clean out on the outside, you can always pull the lid off. The sewer line should have just a little bit of water at the bottom of it holding. If it's full half or more, then you've got some sort of small plug starting to happen.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're not having problems, I mean, and you're just living in it, I haven't ever just randomly had mine looked at, but on buying them, we definitely have, or when we've sold them. Yeah. Older houses, like houses that I've built and lived in for a couple of years. I mean, most of the time people don't even have those. I mean, how often would you say that you have houses that are 20 years old or newer where they do sewer scope?
Very few.
Because do you have very many issues that you see with PVC sewer lines?
Not too many. The biggest thing with those is the dipping or a cave in. And sometimes that was created. There was one or two I've caught that was created from when the house was built. They didn't set the bed for the sewer line to lay on properly. They pull all that dirt on it, and then it pushes down on that pipe, and it creates a dip in it. And sometimes it gets so bad where the whole pipe's full of water for like a 3-foot section, and then it flows on through. Most of the time, they're not considered a huge issue as long as your pipe is flowing.
Trying to think if I can think of anything else. Oh, I do know one other thing I'll add on to all this. You know, where you were talking about there should always be some water in the line.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important for plumbing in general. But I can think of the last house that David and I bought. It sat vacant for quite a while. So and you and I talked about one that you just inspected recently. The house had sat vacant for a couple of years. And then somebody bought it and flipped it. And so when those pipes are sitting dry and nothing is running through it, basically all of the stuff that had been in that sewer line is creating a crust. It's drying out. Yep. And then when you reintroduce water and toilet paper and things like that back into the system,
that crust.
Sometimes it can create a clog. And then so when we moved into our house, we had it, David, was it twice that we had it kind of snaked out, and then we never had a problem since.
Sure.
And I gave that recommendation to one of Bonnie's clients the other day because her house had set. She's like, yeah, she's telling me all about it. I'm like, so how long was it vacant before you bought it? And then she told me, and I'm like, I bet $5 that it's the same thing that we ran into. So
another little might be a talk for another topic another day, be septic tanks. So many of them I get to I can't always pull the lid off. Some of them are too heavy. Some of them are covered in dirt I can't even get to. But I would say 8 times out of 10, they're full.
Yeah.
It depends on how many people living in a house and how long it's been since the last time they cleaned it. Obviously, you know, you get a family of 5 in there, probably looking at cleaning one out about every year. If it's a single person, maybe every 5 years. But, you know, obviously you want to keep those emptied out and flowing properly. Otherwise, you'll have sewage back into the house again.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions for Jason about sewer lines? Doesn't look like it.
Doesn't look like it.
Okay.
We
Well,
did our job.
what's your phone number, Jason, if anybody has questions later?
At 316-570-1444.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for tuning in today and watching this. And Jason, thank you for taking your time out again today. I appreciate it. I think this is super important stuff for our clients.
Hope it helps.
It does.
Okay.
All right. Bye, guys. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.